Hello, folks. This is Founder Lee Roon. I'm here with Fantasy Grounds College, and we are going to delve into character creation. But this time, we're going to kind of do it in reverse. So we have a character that's already built. I created it before Unity was complete. I want to go back and refresh it up a little bit and maybe use it again. So if you have a ton of characters floating around, it doesn't hurt once in a while to go back and revisit those and kind of update them and maybe change them around a little bit, make them nicer, add some backgrounds to them, and before you know it, you'll have a nice collection of player characters in case you need some characters to distribute during a one-shot or whatever. So this is going to help with that a little and maybe inspire you to go back and finish or flesh out some of the characters that you already have floating around. This is the DnD5e Ruleset, but if you're using Pathfinder or another fantasy-based rule set, some of this stuff would apply to you. We are also using assets from Bernardo Hasselmann. He is a token maker, and this is the token one of the tokens that I'm using in this particular show. I also have some maps that I'm going to load from Game Tile Warehouse. It's Kriss, some jungle-based ones, so I can demonstrate some of the things that the character can do. And we're going to get into a lot of things. So this might be a long video, and later on when I post the video online, I will make sure I make some sort of index so you're not you don't have to watch 2 hours of the video to get the part that you want. And also I will leave descriptions and text in the archive so that when you go back to look at these, you're able to figure out what I use and such. So the first thing I did was I pulled up Fantasy Grounds, and I found this NPC or character that I really liked. Her name is Shulga, and she is a sorceress, 3rd level. She is a Wanti pureblood. Her background is an urban bounty hunter. She goes into civilized areas such as human civilizations or maybe elven or wherever it's close. And she will go in there and infiltrate and try to capture or drug some of her victims and bring them to the Wanti hideout. And at that point, they will start their process of brainwashing and drugging and everything, and then they'll take the victims back to where their kingdom is. So this is kind of her role, as she's like a poisoner, and she's also a bounty hunter, so she goes after certain people. But her role, she has a couple strong arms individuals that help her, so I got to figure out what they're like. But for the most part, she's a 3rd level sorceress. She's got some pretty good stats. I mean, she's got 11 strength, a 16 dexterity, 12 con, 14 intelligence, 10 wisdom, and an 18 charisma. So she is a little bit overpowered, but I kind of like that in a sorceress. It makes her more of a powerful player and also more of a menace. Her sheet is already done. I've already went through and customized this character before. I didn't do it before the show. I've done this like many months ago. But she's ready to go. I mean, she's got all her automation and that sort of thing. There are a few things I'm going to tweak, like adding light and stuff to it. She has all her skills, so she's ready to go there for the most part. All her abilities are ready to go. She has her innate abilities like spell casting, magic resistance, poison immunity. She gets to choose a gaming set or a musical instrument, which she did. And then she gets thieves tools, which I haven't added to the character yet, so I'll do that. And she can speak Abyssal, Common, and Draconic. So she can speak the language of demons, and she can speak Common, and she can also speak her own tongue, which is Draconic. Being that she's a pureblood, she looks more humanoid than snake, although she does have a lot of snake-like features and qualities. She tends to disguise herself or try to blend in with society, so she doesn't always want to show her snakiness. And she has a potion of healing and some tools and such. She has thieves tools in her pouch, but I haven't added it to a skill yet. She has a little bit of food and water skin. She has a couple daggers, a light crossbow, and I'm going to make her a hooded cobra staff, so that's one of the things I wanted to show you. So we're going to do all kinds of things with this character to make it funner and more interesting and kind of inspire you to go back and work on some of those ideas you had in the past, because I'm sure you've left a lot of good characters on the table and haven't gone back and really looked at them since. So I'm kind of going through a lot of my older characters and seeing which ones are worth revitalizing and turning into something that can be used later on. I might even make a really unique character pack and kind of give it out for free or something like that. That way, the community has access to lots of different characters. You never have too many of those, so that's kind of an important gift to give to the community. I think it helps out a lot in the long run. So at any rate, let's get started. So I'm going to basically take this character, this 3rd level sorceress. She is a Wanty snake woman type. I have a photo that I found online that I want to turn into a token. So this is not for sale, and if I do distribute this module, I won't be including the tokens, because that's, unless I get permission from the artist. I'm pretty sure I can get away with the top-down token, but some of the artwork that I use, probably not. So I'm going to be careful with that if I do end up distributing it. Nonetheless, I have an image on my hard drive that I found for Shulga, and she is kind of like a really beautiful snake woman, a lot of charisma, beauty, charm, that sort of thing. So I'm going to take the photo of her, which is this. This is the original photo that I got off of the artist station or the place like that. So this is Shulga, the snake sorceress. So what I'm going to do with this is actually make a... you can make this transparent, or you can leave it as it is. And this is a JPEG. So JPEG files are kind of hard to stretch, and they tend to distort when they're in this format. So you don't want to stretch and make these bigger if you can help it. Making them smaller isn't as bad, but when you try to stretch them out, they get kind of ornery. So what I'm going to do is right-click on it, and I have a website that I use to help strip down the image. So I'm going to go to Canva, which is a paid service, by the way. I'm not endorsing this, but if you want some quick ways to do stuff, I mean, this is the way to do it. So if I go to Shulga and I look at her picture here, this is something I put together in Canva. So if I click on this photo itself and I go to my uploads, I have a good picture of her that can be used and then for my own personal uses. And I took out the background, so if you are so inclined, you can actually take this photo and put it on another layer. So I'm going to take this picture and I'm going to make a copy of it, and then I'm going to add a different page and I'm going to paste it. So this is what this looks like before adding anything else. And the only thing I really want is her face, but I'm going to go ahead and export just this picture as a transparency so that I can use the photo and have a little bit more flexibility with it. And also it'll stretch better if it's a PNG asset as opposed to a JPEG. So this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to go ahead and click this download. And then you have an option to download it and use it as a transparent background, so you don't get all the white in the background. And I'm going to hit download, and it's going to download this image as a PNG file now instead of a JPEG, because that's what it normally defaults as. Now, PNG files are pretty big, so you got to be careful with them. So I have a zip folder now that has both images in it. And I want page 2 because page 1 is the actual photo. So there we go. There's the image with all that stuff stripped out of it. So now what I'm going to do is take and crop it. And her head's already chopped off, unfortunately. But I'm going to basically I want mainly her face, maybe the snake head. I don't know yet. And I'm going to kind of just see what this looks like. And then maybe just... There we go. Yeah, there we go. So it's a little bit more centered. And now what I want to do is I'm going to right-click. This is just a regular built-in Windows 10 editor. I'm not using anything fancy. So I'm going to go ahead and hit Save Copy. And it saved a copy of it, so it doesn't overwrite the other one. And I'll call it Shulga _ portrait, because that's what I'm making right now. And the only reason I'm doing this is just show you some tools that can be utilized. There's other programs where you can cut the background out if you want me to. So I'm going to hit save, and it's going to save this as a copy now. So now all I want to do is right-click and resize. And when you make assets like this for Fantasy Grounds, you want them to be square, and you also want them to be not too large. This isn't too bad, but I'm going to open it with another program, and this is called Corel. And the reason I'm using Corel is because it has a few more features in it that I want to use. So I'll go ahead and open it up. Another thing I want to do is make sure the photo's square, because that can be problematic if you're not using the correct tools, or if you have a bad program that isn't really helping you much. And while we're waiting for that to load, here's the Bernardo Hasselmann. He's the one that makes the tokens that I'm using in this. This is a Meanders pack from Kriss Game Tile Warehouse. You can buy these loose as individual maps, or you can buy them as a Fantasy Grounds module. He also has them for Roll20 if you have that. And generally, his maps are pretty high quality. He has them at a medium quality, that way it's not too big for Fantasy Grounds. And then I'm using the RP tools to work on the token itself. So I put this token on a base, is what I've done. And this will be the token that I use to illustrate the token, apart from the actual portrait. And then this is the tool I'm going to use in a second here, once I get this thing rendered to where I want it. So this is the picture. So first thing I want to do is crop it to make sure that it's square. And as you can see, it's not quite square. So I want to make sure that it's square. And I captured her crown there and her face. So I'm going to go ahead and click that. And that is a square image. Then hit File, Save. Now the next thing I want to do is I'm going to resize it. So I'm going to go to Image, Resize. It's at 342 by 342. So I want to make it like 200 by 200 at the most. You don't want a huge photo. Anything above 500 by 500 is way too big. Fantasy Grounds recommends around 100, maybe 150, 256, around there. So 256 is actually a good number. So that way you can still see the file, but the memory and the quality is not, messed up too much. And then that's about all I want to do for sizing purposes. And then if I wanted to, I can come in and enhance a little bit. So I could adjust the brightness and the contrast a little bit. And then I'm going to take and you can add a border if you want, but it's not necessary for Fantasy Grounds, for the portrait anyways. And then you can always adjust like digital noise removal. That gets rid of all the excessive lines, but it kind of blurs it out a little bit too much and you lose the detail. So I'm not going to do that. I kind of like the texture and stuff. So this is what it's going to look like when it's finalized. But when you have it zoomed all the way in, so you start losing quality. So that's a lot to do with the beginning image. So I'm going to hit File, Save. And I'm just letting it save over itself because I don't plan on keeping this for very long anyways. So that's the image that I want to use in the other program, which is this token stamp. And all I'm going to do really, honestly, is add a token frame around it. It's nothing fancy. Or I could have taken that whole image and kind of done it myself that way. So there's two ways you can do this. But I'm going to go ahead and drag the new image to that actual web page. So I'm going to open up my folder, and here's the Shulga portrait that's on my hard drive, and I'll just drag and drop it. And as you can see, it's already kind of cool. And what's nice about this is when you stretch it, it doesn't distort as much. So that's why I use that. And being that this photo is more square, I think I will square it up instead of that circle. So I'll use a thin square, and then I'll just take this and drop it right in there. And as you can see, the background is cut out so that I can add any tint or kind of texture or whatever you want in the background. And then you can change the color of this frame. So I'm going to turn it like more of a green color, kind of go with the snaky feeling. And that will be kind of like that, but with a darker kind of a greenish effect to it, maybe just a little bit lighter for contrast. And you don't actually need a border because Fantasy Grounds already applies it. So technically, I don't even need a border, because if I do add the border, it doubles up on the border in the game itself. So I won't put a border on it all. I just want to see what it looks like sized here. And if you look, this is your preview image of what you're going to get in this window up here on the top right here, or over on the right. So then I want to take, and if I want the background to be a different color, I can do that by changing whatever you want back here. So probably a greenish color will do. So maybe a lighter green, so it stands out a little bit more. There we go. So kind of a brighter green would help. And then that's what it's going to look like in the preview. And then I want to move her head up because I noticed there was a little line here, and I want to stretch this just a tad. There we go. So that's what her face is going to look like. And I want to center that a little bit more. I want to actually have her face, not just, a bunch of other stuff. And then I'm going to just kind of move it around a little bit so that it gets lined up, but it's not cut off. That's what I'm really going to be sensitive about that. There we go. Oops. That sucked. What the heck? What did I do? Dang it. I accidentally clicked one of my my side buttons. That's okay. So I'm going to go back to, this is Roll Advantage Token Stamp. That's the website, so that's helpful anyways for you. And it kind of had to start over because I accidentally clicked on one of my side buttons on my mouse. And then I'm just going to take and drag that image from the hard drive, drag and drop it into there. And then I'm going to change that from a square to a rectangle, or nothing, actually. So no border at all. Background color was kind of a light green, kind of a, there we go. So kind of wanted a brighter green so that, there we go. Make it a little bit brighter so her token stands out. And this is basically what it's going to look like in the preview. That's kind of perfect, so I should probably leave that. So I'll just leave it like it is so I don't screw it up again. And I'm going to hit download. And when it downloads the file, it's going to give me the preview image here. So I think that's pretty cool. I'm good with that. Then what I'm going to do is just import it into Fantasy Grounds. So I want to go back into my hard drive and figure out where that is. So is it a Untitled Design? Oh. See, that's the actual Snake Staff folder. I'm going to use that. Let's see. So that I don't want. Snake Woman I'll keep. Where's the token? So you want to find token. Let me see what it's saved as. I didn't really pay attention. So download and, oh, okay. Token _2. Got it. Okay. No problem. So what I'm going to do is look for that in my hard drive. I need to refresh it because right now it's just showing that. So here we go. So here's token. I'm going to call this Shulga token 1. Actually, this is a portrait, or no, this is like a token more. But Shulga token 2. So I have two different types of tokens. I have the top-down version, and I'm going to have a POG version. And then this is also going to be the portrait. Yeah, so there we go. So we have two different graphics, and you can do whatever you want with them, but I just have different versions in case. And now when you go into Fantasy Grounds, right now I have a generic portrait selected. I already have her top-down token, but if you go into Assets, and you can go to Tokens, you can add tokens there, and then go to Portraits, and you can add them here. So I'm going to click on Portraits, and then I'm clicking on Folder, and that will bring up this folder here for the campaign. And then I want to make sure that that I create something. So this is in my data folder, and not in my actual campaign folder. And then I have a folder called Custom Made. And this is where I put all my handmade stuff that I created myself. So I'll just go to Folder, and then I'll put them in the Custom Made Portraits. So that's where I'll put her actual portrait. Want to become famous? Buy follower, blah, blah, blah. So whoever that V Hotmail person is, ignore them. Yeah, token stamp tool is cool. I use it every time I need a custom token. My mouse has started randomly double clicking and yeah, I understand. It sucks. Yep. So that is basically the token stamp part of it. So I'll show you how I made the token shortly, the top down. But this is basically a nice tool to get used to, and you have multiple programs that are good at different things. So now that I'm in Fantasy Grounds, I want to add this. So I'm going to click Folder, and then I'm going to the subfolder where my custom made stuff is, and then I'm going to go to the download folder where the portrait was, and I'm going to drag and drop that into there. And then if I want to use this as a token, you kind of don't have to make a separate thing unless you want a frame or something fancy. So I'll leave it at that. But now that I have that, I can actually use that picture instead of this generic one I have. So I'm going to hit refresh. So that's important when you add something that you hit refresh. And here is her actual token, or her portrait. I keep getting those mixed up. And you can drag and drop it from there to here. And that way you don't have to double click on the bag and all that stuff. When you're, if you double click on this folder or here, you're going to go to here, and then you're going to go to there. I think it's easier just to do it from the outset and drag and drop, because you can see everything and it gets through all the generic stuff. And this is a lot easier to do it this way. Now, if you didn't want to use this top-down token, you can drag this portrait over and drop it on top of there. I'm not going to do that, but I just wanted you to be aware of it. And whenever you're working on a character, especially one that's this far along, you want to drag and drop your character in the combat tracker just so you can check things out. So this is basically the character, and I'm going to bring up a map pack, which is kind of a swamp-related thing. So I'll go to my library, and I've already preloaded these two map packs. There's jungles, basically Mirdark Jungle 1 and 2. So I want to look at number 2, and you go to Maps and Images. Brings up a list, and then you got to get an idea of what's in the pack by clicking on the preview image. It's the way Kriss made these. So it's like a selection panel. So you can go through here and go, oh, okay. So there's this, and then you can decide, which one you want to use. So there is one in the first pack, I believe. That's one of my favorites. No, it's here. It's right here. So jungle image number 24. So if I open this up, there is the jungle map that I really like. And what it is like a waterfall, and then there's like an old temple right next to it on the edge. So if I stretch this out a little bit and resize the window, and then I'm going to go ahead and kind of make it a little bigger so we can see it. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is make sure I put at least a grid on it. No, nothing fancy right now. So grid. And it's going to drop that down. And normally what I'll do is, since I don't have a grid on here, I'm just going to take and nudge that over a little bit. There we go. I think 48 is the actual number for this. Yeah, that's pretty close. Yep. So 48 is a good number. And then, since it's kind of a gray color, I want to kind of blend it in with the jungle itself. So I'm going to click on toggle, or this tint, and pick the color picker. And then I'm going to just kind of glide it over some of these colors on the map and say, oh, okay. So that's the color of the grid, and then I'm going to turn down the alpha channel, which kind of turns down the actual contrast and the transparency on it, so it's not too dramatic or crazy. That looks pretty good for scale reasons. And then I always drag and drop the token on there to see what it looks like. Oh yeah, that looks really cool. So if I lock the map or go back to play mode, I can actually take Shulga and move her up. So I put a base on there so that she would, you know, kind of look more. So that looks pretty good. So that base kind of gives it more, you know, a little bit more to do with the background, so you don't always get washed out. There we go. So that looks pretty good. So that's going to be like her token. And then, like I said, I made that poster of her to kind of get me in the mood for working on this type of character. So I go to the assets folder, and I'm going to go to images. And I do already have a campaign folder, so I'll double click that. And here's a picture that I was going to use for her. So that's kind of a cool photo. It's kind of a cartoon comic book look to it. And I'm going to go to folder. And I'm going to go to my hard drive, my downloads folder. And I'm going to drag and drop this Shulga picture that I made. And then once you've added something to your campaign or to your records, you hit that refresh button and it's going to bring up the image that you just added. I can double click it for a preview. It looks pretty good. And at this point, I can set it as a background decal, or I can send it over to the images and maps area. So I'm going to go with create image record. Actually, the background would be cooler. So that's the kind of the background inspiration type thing, and this is her token, and then I have her character sheet here. So it kind of gives you a little bit of flavor. So this thing here, this program, right now it's set to 100 by 100 for the base. And then when you put over the actual background image, it'll superimpose above there, and then you can just mouse wheel in and out to change the actual size of the token and the base if you want. So it's up to you how you want to do this, but you can also choose to have it to where in this mode here, it will cut off the arm so you don't have any excess around the edges of the square. So it just depends on how you want to do it, but you can make these a little base, and then you can change the overlay properties so that it has some opacity, so that when you put it on a battle map, you can still kind of see some of the texture underneath, but you're not covering the actual map all the way. So there's a transparency slider on the bottom where you can slide that back and forth and kind of make it a little bit invisible so it's not so stark and so drastic. So that's just a suggestion. And then for the size of the token, I honestly, even though 100 by 100 is good, I usually do like 125 or 200 just in case for sizing reasons. But it makes the file size bigger, so you got to be careful with that. So that's the program I use for that. And then let's see. Okay, now what I'm going to do is go and start looking at the character sheet. I'm going to add some custom items to it. I'm going to give her a Cobra staff, kind of like I had in the picture here. So what I want to do is I'm going to create an item, and then I'm going to add it to her sheet. So I'm going to take about a minute to kind of figure out what I want to do, and then I'll come back and start really hammering out the magic item in question. So I'm going to mute my mic temporarily. If you have any questions, go ahead and formulate it. Howdy, Drake. Welcome. So basically, I'm going to, there's audio. I was just taking a quick break. I wanted to think about what I'm going to be making as far as the Cobra staff. So maybe you can give me some suggestions. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to model the staff after a +1 quarterstaff. The easiest way to make an item is just to take something that's already there and actually just copy it. So I'm going to go to Porter. I'm going to go ahead and type that and search for it. And I have a couple different variations. I'll just use the SRD one. And what you want to do is create a group. So I'm going to go ahead and click Add Category. And it calls it Group 1 by default. So I'm just going to call this Custom Magic Items. And this is a good habit to get into if you're creating custom content. You don't have to do this, but it really organizes your material. So here's the folder or the subfolder. Now what I'm going to do is go back to the SRD data and then drop down this list. I'm going to make a copy first, just dragging and dropping this token back in here. So I have a copy that's not attached. This is a copy of the original. And I'm going to take the copy and drag it into the custom magic items. So now I have a quarterstaff. So I could have taken a magic quarterstaff and added that, but I want to show you more thoroughly of how I'm doing this. So this weapon itself is versatile. It's a simple melee weapon. I'm going to make it rare for the type. And if you want a template or like a guide or something to use to kind of give you an idea of what you need to put in here, then go ahead and grab something from the images, and then you will take and not the images, but the actual items. And then you could take a weapon or whatever you want to call it, a quarterstaff, and you can, add magic properties. So let's go with make sure I have the SRD loaded. Yeah, so I don't have the items thing, so I'm going to go to the modules, and I want to make sure I load that because that has a few magic items in it. So if you go to the SRD, which is the free stuff, and you click on load for magic items, so that brings in some of the basic magic items from the monster manual. And that way you have a template to work with. So then if you go to quarterstaff and unselect this, go back to all, you will have your option on how to make this. So here's a +1 quarterstaff. What's the vicious one look like? Yeah, that's just a tougher one. So I'm going to go to the quarterstaff +1, and this is basically the generic one. And I want to copy this over so I can edit it. So now I have 2. And the one version here that doesn't have the text here is the copy. So I'm going to drag and drop that into the custom magic items area. And that way, like I said, it's still viable and easy to find and not all messy. And so this is how this is done. So you can open this up and you can take and see the properties, the differences here between a magic item and one that isn't. So you see you have this bonus here would be +1, so you add a 1 there. And then this versatile, magic is important because that adds a magic tag to the item itself. And then this cost here, since this is a magic item and this has a range of costs, plus I'm going to be adding more stuff, this thing's going to be worth like 1,200 gold pieces at least. Because I'm going to add a few things to it, not just the magical properties. And this has a refined quarterstaff up here. So I'm going to say a refined snake-looking staff. And that's the name you're going to get when it's not identified. So that's what this little question mark is up here. And then this is a quarterstaff, but I'm going to call it the hooded snake quarterstaff, +1. So that's what we're doing here. I'll just copy and paste this, the stuff in the cell for the notes. And then for rarity, I'm going to put rare. And since this is a really kind of going to be a powerful magic item, I'm going to say that it requires attunement. So in other words, when you pick this up, you can't benefit from its magic right away. You have to attune to it. And I'm going to have put some other little nasty surprises on it, because it's not only going to be attunement required, but if someone with a good alignment picks it up, it's going to zap them. So it's going to be kind of an evil aligned weapon. So I don't want to make it too generic. I want it to be unique to her pretty much. But, you know, some people can use it if they're evil and they worship snakes and stuff like that. But other than that, if you pick it up, it's going to zap you if you're good aligned. So I'm going to call it rare, and then requires attunement. So if you ever want to know in Fantasy Grounds what items require attunement, you pull up the items, assuming you have content and books loaded. So you're going to pull up the items list here. And when you do that, you're going to look at this filter down below called attunement with a question mark. So I'm going to get rid of my search terms, and I'll say yes. And if you do have any, and I got to get rid of that category. So here's all these items require attunement. So if you want to see how that works or what it should look like, you open up this amulet of health, and then you just make a copy of it. And then you can open that up and crack it open, and you can see the properties in Fantasy Grounds. So if you open this up, see this thing that says requires attunement? This is exactly what I want. And there's a reason why I'm setting it that way. And then as far as the value goes, I've already set that. I'm going to add another pound of weight to it. So it doesn't weigh just 4 pounds, it now weighs 5, because it's heavier and it's got some magical stuff involved with it. And then I will put this description as part of the description here. So that gets rid of the +1 part of it. I mean, that explains that part. And then you already have all this stuff filled out. So you get a +1 on damage and attack rolls. So this is just the item that I'm working on. When first started using, I did not know the shortcut keys or copy and paste. Yeah, that's a pain in the butt. Yeah, I'm going to make a Cobra staff. It doesn't really have an actual item. There might be something equivalent to it, like in Lost Mines, or not Lost Mine, but the Tomb of Annihilation or something. Or maybe they call it a snake staff or something. But this is going to be like the hooded Cobra staff, kind of an evil aligned weapon. And it can be used by spellcasters to its fullest advantage. If a melee person grabs it, they're going to run into the fact that it's just going to be a +1 item. It's not really going to be what they hope. No. So, all right, so I'm going to go ahead and start adding stuff. So in addition to the +1 damage and attack, it's going to give you poison damage too. So I'm going to say that when a creature, I'll say when the wielder I think you have to say and poison damage. If you don't, it won't show up in the properties. We'll see when I drag it over. So when the wielder is attuned, So if you're a spellcaster of some sort, you can be anything. When the wielder is attuned to the staff, it confers an additional 1d4 plus caster level of poison damage. So you have to be some sort of caster. So I say when the wielder is a spellcast, or when the wielder is attuned, let's see. I should say the wielder So when the wielder must be a spellcaster and attuned to this staff before So if you're a spellcaster and you're not good, so the wielder must be an evil. So the spellcaster must be an evil aligned, the wielder must be an evil aligned spellcaster and attuned to this staff before it will confer an additional 1d4 plus caster level appointment plus the caster's level in poison damage. So if you're evil and you pick this thing up, it's going to do an additional 1d4 plus your level. That way, as you level up, the item gets a little bit more powerful. I don't think that's too ridiculous. I don't know. What do you guys think? I'm not sure if that's overboard or not, but I wanted the item to be rather unique and hard to just pick up and use. And these are kind of like homebrew things anyways, so the next thing it does is if a good aligned person picks it up, it will zap them for 1d6 necrotic damage per round until they destroy it or drop it. So it's not something that is good to mess with. I mean, if you're neutral, it's not going to do anything to you, but you're not going to be able to benefit from the spellcaster. So if a good aligned creature picks up this staff, they will receive a 1d6, receive a jolt of 1d6 necrotic damage per round. So that's like ongoing damage. Unless destroyed, I'll say dropped first. Unless dropped or destroyed. So if somebody that picks that thing up is not of a neutral or evil alignment or chaotic or whatever, they're going to get zapped. So this thing is not good. It's like almost like an artifact or something. I don't know, but it's got some additional things. Yeah, so a good lich may not drop it. Yeah, I definitely gonna have to figure out how to destroy it. I think I don't know exactly how it would be destroyed. I guess you can smash it and do it, throw it in lava or something. But I don't think water will kill it. Like, you can't throw it underneath the ocean and it would destroy it. I think if you threw it in a campfire or If you threw it in lava or something like that, it might destroy it. Campfire may not, though, if it has magical resistance to fire, but I doubt that. So with that, okay, so you pick up, if you pick it up, you get a jolt of 1d6 necrotic damage per round. I thought about poison damage, but it already has that, so it's kind of redundant. And then I also didn't spell poison correctly, so let me fix that. That's important. And then if you ever want to know like what the wording should be, so if it's versatile, 1d6, comma magic, and then you would probably put poison or poison damage. You want to look at the parsing, so we'll see how this turns out. But I don't think it's going to set up right because I already have the magic in there, so we'll see. But we'll find out when I drag it over. So next thing is, okay, so if that, okay, the last thing it does, and this is kind of the overkill part, this is an optional thing. So you don't, if you have a low level campaign, or you don't, if you think it's a little OP, it's optional. But the optional homebrew thing is that if you wield it, the wielder gets one extra first level spell slot. And that's helpful for like a sorceress or, you know, somebody that doesn't get a lot of spells. So the wielder gains one extra first level spell slot. So this is kind of the OP part of it. So if you, if the wielder, okay, the wielder, I'll just say a magical or spellcaster is the wielder, he or she gains one extra first level spell slot. So this is kind of a homebrew kind of manual type thing. So I go ahead and put a header on that. Like I said, you don't have to use that. That's just an option for this magic item. Kind of gives it some more flavor, and that's why I gave it like, you know, a higher value, like 1,200 gold instead of 500, because it has this additional poison plus, you know, it basically jolts the heck out of you if you're not evil, and it also gives you the ability to gain another spell slot if you want to use that rule. So I'll say optional homebrew rule. That way, if someone comes across something like this, they don't have to worry about it. So that's the staff, and I'm going to drag it over and see what happens. I think it's got enough stuff on it, so, you know, I don't want to make it more complex than it already is. So that's basically how that's going to shake down. So a good lich may not drop it. Yeah, you never know. Okay, so that is basically, in a nutshell, the item. So let's see what happens when we drag it over to the character sheet. So I'm going to drag and drop it here. And it's a refined snake staff because it's not identified. So if I click on this item here and I identify it, now since I put that statement in there that it requires attunement, it has a little bubble here, so I have to check that off, and that goes against a total of 3. So she can't have more than 2 other attuned items. So that's what the attunement tracker is all about. And then I'm going to go to her actions tab, and you see it didn't add the poison because I didn't have the wording correct. So I need to say and magic and poison damage. So let me see if that helps. I know there's a statement that you have to put in there that will add that additional line. So let's see what happens. So I'm going to remove it temporarily off of her sheet and go back to her inventory. Yeah, so delete that. Now I'm going to go back to my items, which I created, and then I'm going to filter it. So this is why you do that custom magic items filter. That way you're not constantly looking for stuff. Okay, so I'm going to drag and drop that to her. And it's not it's not identified, so it has to be identified first. So that's another thing that would go against someone who wants this thing. I was going to add a thing about, it's going to be harder to sell it if someone knows its properties on it. That's too much crap. So I was going to make it so you have disadvantage if you try to gift it or sell it to somebody, but that starts getting into curses and stuff. I'm good. So let me look at the Actions tab. Yeah, see, you can't have 2 or more properties on here. So let me take a look at something that is poison in the items, and let's see what they did to it. Because it may just say poison damage, which, is kind of right, but not exactly. So let me go to an item that already has poison properties. So if I go to items, and an arrow might not be a good idea, but we'll see. So I'll just say that like this, and I'll say, and I'm going to get out of the custom items and just go to all again. That way I can capture everything. And then I want to put poison, and I want to see if anything comes up that's other than the... Oh, here's a breastplate, but I don't want armor. I want a weapon. There's potion, wyvern potion. These are all armor type things and potions. I don't think so. That's not exactly what I'm looking for. So brow poison is just a potion. Let's see what it looks like, though, just for the heck of it. Let's see how they wrote it. So I'm going to go there and drop this, and it says poisons as a subcategory, but I don't see anything other than the statement here about the poison. So it's basically, you might have to add that, and I think the better way to handle this is to make it an item instead of a weapon. Or you could go to this, just add the property here. So if see, and poison damage. So I got to think about that. So I know there's a way to do it. I've seen, but it could be that it's magic and you can't have more than one statement on here. But if you add an item on here and you drag the 1d4 and then you add the multiplier of level, it will work out correctly for this part of it. So so she's 3rd level, so that's right. So it adds the damage, and then you have to type poison here. Otherwise, it won't work out right. So there we go. So that is the snake staff. And the other things are more roleplay kind of things. So like you can make an effect instead of doing it this way, and then make it to where, it's all in one place. So if I wanted to create a magic item, let me compress this down a little bit, since I don't need all these spells at the moment. So if I wanted to compress it down and make an item, so I would make a new group, and then I'm going to call this group magic items. And then I would take and see, now it has a new group. Then I'm going to call this the Cobra Staff. The Hooded Cobra Staff. Okay, and now if I open this up, it's not going to have a description. So what I can do is take the description from the actual item itself and post it in there, so I don't have to keep flipping back and forth. That drives me absolutely nuts. So if I unlock this temporarily, and I take the description down below and hit Control A, and then Control C, and then down here, Control V as in Victor, you can fix that. So you can have this as a description, and it will help you with this actual item, so you're not constantly looking through stuff. And I'm going to hit Control 2 and pick this, Control 2 on that, because that'll add the header. Now when you pull up that item, you have the description. You don't have to keep going back to the magic item. That drives me bananas if you don't have that. When you're making actions like that, you should have a description. So now when you open it up, you have a description here. because this isn't actually an item now. This is actually spell coding. So something that you want to do. So if it's evil like that, should you put something in the description on destroying it? So a good, yeah, Cobra Kai. Yeah, there you go. Yep, Cobra Kai it is. Okay, so I added the snake staff as a weapon, but now I'm adding it as a coded item. So if I do that, I won't necessarily have to have this weapon entry here. But I might leave it there just so it's convenient, but I don't know. So now what I want to do is first, I want to add the melee attack, because you can't really throw this thing at anyone. So I'm going to right click on it, and I'm going to add an action. And this action is going to be called cast. Now the cast doesn't just mean spells, it also has melee attacks and other things. So I'm going to add the cast function. Upon doing so, I'm going to click on this magnifying glass that's over to the right next to the save. I'm going to open this up. And then I'm going to change this to melee. And then I'm just going to say base it on an ability. In her case, it's going to be dexterity. And I'll leave the rest of it alone. And then the damage is you're just going to leave that because the damage is a separate thing. So this would be the first piece of the weapon. So this is just the attack. And it's based on her dexterity because that's her highest thing. But honestly, if she was a fighter, it was normal circumstances, it would be based on her strength. But in this case, it's going to be more of a dex thing, but it's not a finesse weapon. So technically, it should be a melee weapon, and it should be her strength. So if you don't want to cheat, you can put this back to her strength, or just leave it as base like that. So that's the best way to do it. Okay, so that's that. And when you're back here, now we're going to add the damage. So there's going to be two different damage lines. So one is going to be the regular damage, so I'm going to add action and add damage. And then I'm going to add another action, which is a different type of damage, which is the actual poison. So I'm going to add an action, and I'm going to add damage again. So the first line is going to be the basic damage. And this is also a two-handed or one-handed weapon, so I'm going to have to make two of these instead of just one. So the first one's going to be 1d6, and it's going to be magic. Actually, bludgeoning. And it's going to be magic. Now the next damage is going to be the poison itself. So again, I'm going to add a new line. And then I'm going to drag a 1d4. And I'm going to put by level, because this is going to be her, every time she gains a level, the poison goes up by 1 point. So that's 1d4 plus 3 right now. And then I need to put poison here. So it's very similar to how a weapon is set up, except for, there's a little bit difference in here. So the casting is separate. And then this is a versatile weapon. So I got to create this or make a copy of this again. So I'll just do it again just so you can see the coding. But instead of a 1d6, it's going to be a 1d8. So I'll grab an 8-sided this time and a 4-sided. I change this to the level of the caster, because that's what the poison does. Poison. And one thing I forgot was this bonus, a +1. So I'll fix that on the other one too. And then the type up here is bludgeoning. and magic. And it has to be, see, I put bludgeoning. It has to be spelled correctly, or it's not going to work. So bludgeoning with a D in there. There we go, comma, magic. And then the second one has a level, and that +1 is because it is a +1 quarterstaff. So I got to fix the attack roll and the damage. So this is for the for the two-handed attack. And this other one here is, see, I didn't have this spelled right either. So there's a D in there. And then I need to put a 1 because it's a +1 weapon. And then on the actual melee attack, I need to add a 1 there because of the staff. There we go. So that's correct now. That's what it should look like. So at first, I didn't have that in there, and that's broken. So I have 3 lines here. I have the cast, which is basically attack roll or casting saving throw. And then you have damage for a one-handed use and damage for two-handed use, because it's a versatile weapon. I think in most cases she would use it one-handedly, but nonetheless, who knows. So that's that. And now, finally, if you want the poison to have an effect, potential, it may not just do damage. Maybe it causes paralysis. Whatever it might be, you need to notate that in the actual item description. So if I go back to the inventory and I open up the staff, if you just put it there, that's going to be temporary. So you have to change it in the items. And that way it's a permanent change instead of temporary. So I'm going to go back to the item that I made in my custom magic items group and get rid of that search term of poison. And here's our hooded snake. So it's hood snake, it's hooded. So I got a lot of spelling errors all over the place. So hooded snake staff, snake quarterstaff. Okay. And then I want to put here, maybe if they save, they take half damage, or if they are poisoned, they are going to suffer from paralysis. I think the latter. That's easier to do. So I'm going to go ahead and add the target. I'll say if hit, the target will become paralyzed unless a DC 11 Constitution check. I don't have the wording in here right, but if the target takes damage, I'll say if they get hit. If the target gets hit, the target will become paralyzed unless a DC 11 Constitution check is made. Something like that. So that would be that. And then once you have added that little bit of lore, it won't confer over, so you have to delete this item. And then you have to identify it and then drag it back to your sheet and then put the attunement on here. And then come back and you'll see this. Let's see if that actually... Yeah, see, that's only half of it. That's not the full That's not the full thing. So we're not even going to use the weapon part of it because it's really not how we're going to use it. We're going to actually use the effect. So we have all the stuff here. And then you get an extra spell slot. So that's a homebrew thing. So if you wanted to simulate that, you would go to the edit mode and then go to preparation, and you can change the spell slot. I've already done it, but you can this is normally 5. But if you're holding the staff, you get an extra first level slot. So that would just be variated on how you're going to do it. But I'd leave it at 5, and then if she drops the staff or if she becomes dead or whatever, then that, of course, that would change. So that's just a little homebrew thing we threw in there. And then to simulate the paralysis thing, we had only applied if they failed the saving throw. So on a failed save, they would become paralysis would set in. So target will become paralyzed unless. So there's a better way to word that. So it would be like they must make a Constitution DC 11 check against this, and then then you would. But basically, you'd have better wording for that if you're going to put it on an NPC. But this is just an item, so I'm not too worried about it. And then as far as the effect goes, I'm going to add one more effect to the item, and that's going to be a paralysis. So add action. We're going to add the effect, and it just makes a new line. And now I'm going to add poison. Paralysis. And then it's just going to be on target. It never expends. We'll say that it does have a duration because I don't want it to last forever. So we'll say it will fade after 4 rounds. And that's pretty powerful. So, and then you need the keyword in here for paralyzed. So if you go up to the interface and you check out the effects up here, this is the keyword. So you want paralyzed is what you want. So paralyzed. That's the keyword. So that's what you would drag to your target once they've received damage. And it will expire after 4 rounds. So that's kind of a powerful item there. And then for the daily use, it's probably every time. So if you hit with that staff, this is what's going to happen. And you have 2 different damages for if you use it one-handed or two-handed. You have the attack roll itself, and then you have the effect of poisoning. So when you're actually using this character on the combat tracker and you want it to see what it's going to look like, this is how you want it to look. So you have the attack roll, you have 2 different damages, so you got to make sure you drag the right one over, and then you have the paralysis. So that's the hooded staff. And then you have your notes here, of course, of how your other things. So if somebody good picks it up, they're going to get zapped, that sort of thing. So that's kind of how you customize your character if you want to really make it interesting. So this is Shulga, the kind of like a snake sorceress. She goes into towns and infiltrates victims and then brings them back to the temple, and they sacrifice them and all this other weird stuff. So she has some crossbow bolts and some light crossbows. So I might give her some poison to coat the crossbow bolts with, so that way she can click and hurt them on a ranged attack. So let's do that. So I'm going to go to items, and I'll get out of my custom group and just go to all, and I want to type poison because this is going to be a not much damage, but it's going to be like a paralysis type thing. So poison. And here is a basic. I'm going to give her the poisoner's kit because that makes sense for her. And that has vials, chemicals, and things that she can create with. And I'm going to get rid of her thieves' tools because she doesn't really need those. So it's kind of balance it out a little bit. And then poisoner's kit, I'm going to put it in her pouch. That's where she stores it. or actually in her backpack. Let's go with backpack. Yep. So she's got her poisoner's kit, and then on the back here for skills, I'm going to add her poisoner's kit back here. So if she wants to brew poisons above and beyond her ability, we got to have some way to roll that, and I think it's based on wisdom or intelligence. And it's just in a way that you can roll for if you need to use it like out of game or something, if she wants to create some kind of cool poisons. Now we have to also go into the poison properties and take a look at it, because we might have to customize it. So this just says a poison. Let's take a look at the item itself. There's a basic vial, and it looks like it's a 1d4 poison damage. Once applied, the poison retains its potency for 1 minute before dying off or before drying out. So I like that, but I want to add another property, and if they save, save or take damage. So in this case, it would be take 1 point of damage, and then if you save, you don't get paralyzed. And that's kind of how I want to make a custom poison. So I'm just going to drag and drop this in here, and this just back where it was, and here's the copy of it. And I'm going to drag and drop this up to custom magic items, because that's where I'm going to take this and customize it. And then I'll get rid of the search term down here. So this is a basic vial of poison. So what I want to do is unlock it, and I'm going to change the rarity to uncommon, because it's not something you can just find. And the cost of a poison like this would probably be about $250. It's a lot more dangerous because of the paralytic properties. It might even have a slightly more weight to it. So it's 0.003 instead of 0.002. And then I would just put the non-ID, I would just put a vial of liquid, just in case someone finds it. And that would be the unidentified name of it. It's adventuring gear, it's standard, it's uncommon, 250 gold, there's the weight. I'll say you can use this vial to coat one slashing or piercing weapon up to 3 times of ammunition. So I don't know what that means, but saying you can coat one slashing or up to 3 times of ammunition. Okay, got it. So it works for three times. A creature hit by the poison weapon or ammunition must make a DC 11 Constitution saving throw, or take one. We'll just say 1d1 poison damage. Once applied, the poison retains its potency before drying. The target must make... if the target fails the saving throw, they also suffer from paralysis for 1d. I'll just say for up to 4 rounds, something like that. I'll say 4 rounds, because I want to give it an exact duration. Okay, so that puts in the notes for that. And I want to copy this, because just in case I want to set it up as an action in the back. So that's the, we're not going to call it a basic anymore. This is going to be a snake poison. So now we have a unique item, and it's our snake poison. So I'm going to drag and drop that onto the sheet, and I'm going to identify it so I don't have to deal with that. And drag and drop it here. So it really doesn't do anything. It just gives you the description and the weight and the cost and everything. So I'm going to put that vial in the pouch. It's down here now. And I'm going to go back to the actions. And I guess under magic items, I'll just put I'll put the potion in there. So I'm going to go ahead and edit the list and add an item. And this is going to be the snake poison. It's paralytic, so that's what the main thing about it is. And then I want to go to preparation and group, and I'm going to change that to 3. You get 3 uses, and once it's done, it's done. So it's only a one-time use. Now I'm going to right-click on it, and I have to put a cast feature on there because they get this. Well, they're already going to do that anyway. So yeah, we'll put the cast thing on there. So put cast, and then we're going to put, because you can throw it, or it can be ranged or melee. So I'm going to open up the cast properties, and the type is, looks like they only have it. Oh, this is for save. That's right. So for save, it's going to be a dex or con save, and then it's going to be fixed because they have it's going to be 11. That's a forced save. And on save, it's not half damage, so that's just in case you wanted something like that. So it's a fixed Constitution saving throw, and it's based on Constitution, so that's the save for it. And then once you force the save, if they don't save, then they're going to take damage. So I'm going to add that damage line. So let's add action, and this time damage. And let's take a look at that. So we're going to add the 1d4, but it's not a 1d4. I remember I said it's only going to be 1 point of damage, but it's poison. So that's that. So that's the actual damage. And then I want to add the action of the paralysis. So I need to add another action, and I'm going to add an effect. And this time, this is the snake poison paralysis. It's a lot like the staff. So they gain the paralyzed effect, and then I'm going to make it 4 rounds. There we go. So that's how the poison is going to look. So now when I switch this over to combat and actions, now you have your 3 usages, and then you have your casting ability for the save. You have 1 point of actual damage, and then the snake poison paralysis. So that's if she wants to use her crossbow or something like that, or her dagger, she can dip it in there, and then she's got her cobra staff for serious fighting. So there we go. So that's that. So that is basically how you would, customize something for your character. And now there's a couple things I wanted to add. So if you want to stick around, there is the light feature here, which is spell light. So under her spells, she has these spells, which are her cantrips. And then she has, these magic missiles and sleep. And then she has Crown of Madness. And then her standard actions. And then she has her Yuan Ti innate abilities, which is poison spray, animal friendship, snakes only, and suggestion. So she kind of has like a charming type thing going because she has charm person, Crown of Madness. So she's just kind of a mental kind of casting thing. Sleep. Magic missile's kind of offensive in case she gets into a jam, basically. Crown of Madness really helps for like if she's helping her allies like fight and stuff. That's really cool. She has Mage Hand, Blade Ward, Infestation, which is kind of cool. So she can give them all kinds of infestations of bugs and such, mosquitoes, fleas. So that's cool. And then there's the sleep, of course. She can put some of the sleep. That's kind of cool. She's almost ready to go. Now, she has some consumable items here, which are the torches. Let's take a look at a torch. So right now, there's nothing. It just doesn't tell you anything. So let me go to the item itself, because this is just to keep track of how many you used. So here's the 10 items. and I want to crack that open, and I want to copy this because this has the information about the actual torch. So if you copy and paste that in there, that way you don't have to keep going back to the inventory like I just did. And then you could add an action to it. So when we come back here to this area, there's your description. It burns for an hour or 600 rounds, so let's do that. So the torch itself, we're going to add some lighting properties. So we want to go to Add Action. And first we're going to add the damage. So if you hit someone with it, then we're going to take care of that. So first of all, let's make a melee attack with it. So I'm going to go to Cast, and then I'm going to change it to melee, and then it's going to be based on whatever your ability is, your base, and then it's only going to have whatever bonus that your character has. So that's just the attack roll. That's all that is. And it's going to be based on your base ability. So now I want to add the actual damage for it. So again, I'm going to right click, Add Action. I'm going to add a damage function. And then I'm going to pop this open, which is this magnifying glass. I'm just going to add a new line here. And I'm just going to put 1 in the bonus area, because that's the only damage it's going to do. We're just going to call it fire. But then you also have your bludgeoning damage from the actual torch. So I'm going to take 1d4, and then it's going to be bludgeoning. And that's basically your damage for and it takes in your strength bonus and that kind of thing if that's the case. So it's fire plus 1d4 bludgeoning. So that's basically the way you can use this to hurt somebody, basically. Now the next step is the lighting function. So we want to add a light to it, or a way to add light to when you use the torch. So what we're going to do is Add Action, and we're going to call it an effect, and we'll open this up, and we're going to call this lighting basically we're going to call it a torch, and then we're going to add a semicolon. And then the actual syntax, the target will be targets, because in case you throw the torch or something, that would be one thing. But normally you would put it on yourself or on an object or another person, so that's why I left it targets. You could put it on self, which means you'd be carrying the torch, but that's not realistic overall. And then for rounds, it's 600 rounds or an hour, so that's the duration. Now we're going to put the actual syntax. So I think it's light, and then there's a colon, I believe. And let me double check this because I want to make sure, because I've made a mistake on this before. So let me go with the lighting features. If you go to the wiki, which is the Atlassian, this is the best place to learn this stuff. So if you're not sure what I'm doing or what's this all about, if you go to the lighting areas, it actually, in the wiki, it tells you what your vision is, and defining the vision and how it works. So this is for if you're already have a character and they're built for the lighting. But if you look at this custom coding here, it says vision 20 torch, and that's all you have to put on there. So that's exactly what I want to make sure that I have. So I already had it messed up. I was close, but so this goes to 20 torch. And I want to see if I have this right. So it's light. Okay, let me light. Go. And colon. And then I think it says 20 torch. So let me double check, make sure. Okay, so it's lowercase 20 torch. Okay, got it. So those are light effects, and you can also drag those. Those are also available in up here when you go into your effects. You could use these too. So these are presets like this, but I'm actually coding it onto the sheet, so that's why I want it. So that 20 is the radius. The torch is just a description. The light is the actual function, and I'm going to change that to lowercase, just like it shows in the example. So that's how you would add light to this particular effect. So now you have this torch that has functionality. So you can hit someone with it, you can burn them, and club them basically, and then you can add the torch effect if you're going to use it for a light. So if this was the case, I will first put her on a map just so we can kind of see that. So I'm going to open up the map that I had earlier. So images, and I knew this was the Mirror Dark 2 maps, so that was this one. I've already added a grid to it. It doesn't have any line of sight on there, so I'm going to go to I'm going to unlock it, and I'm just going to go to play mode, and I'm going to turn on some of these abilities here, and I want to take her off. So now that I have her selected, you can see that she has dark vision because that's built into her character. So if you look at her character sheet, it has dark vision, 60 feet. So that's why it looks black and white, and then there's the radius. So if I'm going to add a candle, let's see what happens. So if I go to our Actions tab, and let's say I want to use this as an actual torch, I would go to her item, and I would drag and drop this effect onto, well, not the attack roll, but the actual effect onto her sheet. And that should have added the, yeah, see, that's, might be that I have to remove this description. So let me double click this, go back to the, I'm getting rid of it for a moment. Going back to the torch itself and taking out this torch and just leave light in there. That might be messing with it. Okay, and then I'll go ahead and close it. And then I'm going to reapply it to her sheet. So go back, click on torch, drop it in there. Yeah, it may be that her dark vision is messing with it. So let me see if I can remove that temporarily. And then I'm going to take her off the combat tracker and put her back on. Let's see what happens. Yeah, so something's messing with it, but basically that's how you would add the torch effect. Or if you didn't have it coded, you can come over to the actual effects that are already built in and drag the torch over to her like that. But it doesn't change her lighting because she has dark vision, so that's why it's messing with it. So dark vision 60. So I'll put it on a different character and see if that helps. Dark vision 60 feet. So it's built into her character sheet, so that's why it's like that. So let me just find a NPC and see if that works. So I'll just grab an acolyte. I'm going to just drag the torch effect to him temporarily just to make sure it works. So I'm going to go to the torch and I will drag and drop it on top of the acolyte. But first, I want to put him on the map. So he will be like the bad guy or the person that's, or no, he's an acolyte. Maybe he's one of her allies. So this is the acolyte. And see, that doesn't have any lighting on it. But if she gave that acolyte her torch, saying, here, human, since you can't see, to drag and drop it on her like that, and it should have technically added the light to this. What the hell happened here? Let me remove this. No, that's right. Let me take the token off for a minute. It's her turn. Make sure her turn's selected. She has the torchlight effect, so let me delete that. Now I'm going to put her token back on the map. Oops, wrong thing. Put her token back here. Okay, now I'm going to apply the effect, which is basically I'll do it from the effects area. So this is the torch, I should say. Yeah, there it goes. So that worked. So what did I do wrong? Light, 20 torch. Okay, so that worked out for that. So let me check that effect out and see if I did something wrong. So I know I did it close, but we'll see. So under the torch here, I'm going to grab this effect, light 20 torch. Should be the same thing. And I don't know why it's not weird. Now this person has dark vision? Doesn't make sense. Okay, well, anyway, so that should have worked technically. Let me see if there's a difference here because I think I did it right. Let's see, torch, light, colon, 20 torch. Yeah, I did the exact same thing. Oh, but mine has a initiative to adjust on. Why is that there? Okay, so let me move that and remove that. Okay, now let's see what happens. So I will move this, take this torch. Let me double click and make sure I have it written down here right. So it's targets. Maybe I'll try self this time instead, see what happens. 600 rounds, light, 20 torch. Okay, so I don't get what I did wrong here. So let's see. I'm going to double click, drag and drop that on there. Take possession of the token. Yeah, I don't know what's going on there. That's crazy. So anyways, that should have technically worked. Let's see, there's a way to turn it on and off, so that's not it. Really weird. Anyways, maybe party vision is on. That could be another thing. So if you go to the options and let's see, where's party vision? Party vision off. So that's not the thing. Really weird. Anyway, so I'm not sure what I did wrong there, but let me double click and get rid of that. So it works from the effects area, but it didn't work from the sheet. I'm not sure why, but anyhow, that looks right anyways. So it's an effect. It's on Shulga. Oh, cast it on Shulga. What? So that's hers. Now let me go to this thing. Okay. Huh. So Shulga's works, but she has dark vision, so it cancels it out. So not sure what's going on there. But you would think that the Acolyte, it would have worked. Who knows? So I got it on there right. So vision, 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 light, light. See, it makes sense. I don't get it. Anyways. So this is how you would basically add effects to your character. And then also to kind of give your character more flavor and such. I've added some magic items. I gave her a better portrait. I made this little poster. Here's her actual token, which is really cool. And it has a base on it so you can see it. Move the token and you can actually see it on the map. And there's the Acolyte. So let me see if I can. I'm going to test out the actual effect here for the poison. So she is going to basically take her new Cobra staff. I'll say that she's in melee position here. She's close enough to attack. And this one is visible now. That might be why the light didn't show up. Okay, so that is that. And let me see if I can apply the light now. That might have been why it didn't work too well. So I want to go to the, call it torch. Grab and drop that on there. There we go. So that's the torch light. And you can see that the dark vision is still there, but it's kind of canceled out. And now I'm going to take and grab this, her sheet, and I'm going to test the poison. So here's the Cobra staff. So she's going to attack first. And that was a successful hit. Now she's using it two-handed, so I want to use the second one of these blood drops. And that is going to... Okay, so she took heavy damage. Now she's going to have to make a saving throw. And that's what I didn't put on here, but maybe... Oh, it's already automatic if she's hit. So there's no saving throw. So I'll just drag and drop that on her, and she's paralyzed now. So that's that. So that worked, and then you can see it's in here. Nice. So that we know that functionality worked. So now I'll get rid of the effect, and I'm going to try the poison out. So we have to go to the consumable items, or the magic items where her poison was. Let's see, where's that? It's right here, snake poison. So if she hits with her weapons, like let's say it's a dagger, then what happens is you force the saving throw. In this case, she succeeded, so she would just take whatever normal damage or no damage at all, depending on what you wrote. But if she did not save, then, well, she's going to take this 1 point of damage regardless. And then if she basically failed that saving throw, then we would drag this on her, and then she would be paralyzed there. So that's basically how it is. I was thinking about getting Shulga a net, but then I would have to replace something else. So probably her dagger or something, I'd probably get rid of that. But she kind of needs that for protecting up close. We'll see. So I didn't give her backgrounds, ideals, bonds, and flaws yet. So we'll see what happens there. But these are the sort of things you want to do to kind of make your characters a little bit more interesting. And you can add a little bit of homebrew stuff to it. I got to figure out what I did wrong with the lighting. I don't know. It may be because the acolyte wasn't visible. So let me try that again. So they already have a torch on them. So let me go back to Shulga's action tab. And then I want to also take a look at her action for the torch. So here's the torch. So the saving throw to hit somebody works. So yeah, she rolled a 20, critical hit. And here's the damage, so it should do 2. Oh no, it did full 8. Nice. Now that person's dying. So let me change that and put it back to like 3 wounds or something. Now I want to see if the torchlight works. Come on, torchlight. Why is that not working? I don't understand it. Unless the torch needs to be added to the character sheet or the NPC. Huh. Well, I know it works from up here, so strange. You can add your own custom lighting. So if you go to the options, okay, and then I believe it's token lights. And if you you can open up like candle, for instance, you could see the effects. So like torch, 600 duration, 20 bright. So this is where you can add your own. So if you wanted to do fairy fire or something like that, you can crack this open, change the color. Let's say your fairy fire is like kind of a purplish color, fade it a little bit so it's not too dark. Hit OK, then you can put your brightness, so that would be 10 feet or 5 feet, and then your drop off would be 10. And then for your dim, it would be 15, and then for your fall off would be 20. And then if you had any animation, you can add that. And then you can call this, magic, I guess. You want for the tag, because if you look at spells, they have light as a tag. So this would be light, is basically what it is. And then the duration would be whatever the duration of the spell is. And then that would be basically how that would work. So we'll just say 10. I forget what fairy fire does, but then you could call it fairy fire if you wanted to. And then you include something like this in your spell effects. And it should so once you create that, and then you go to your effects, you now have a fairy fire effect. So let's see if that even does anything. So I'm going to drag and drop it onto the acolyte. So fairy fire. Yep, there's kind of a purplish hue around here. So that's pretty cool. All right, so there you go. So that's how you add custom lights if you want to do that. But I'm not sure what I'm doing wrong on the spell effects. I have to take a look at that. So what if I go back to the wiki and I change this? I want to go back to, let's see, this is interacting with the tabletop. And then you have adding lights to maps and tokens, or player and token vision on maps. So this is what I was looking at earlier. So vision, and then you have your syntax for how this works, and you have example videos. And then the next thing is to have, let's see, what's the next thing? Create using tokens, adding lights, player, and token vision. Just looked at that. The next one is adding lights to maps and tokens. So let's see what that looks like. Yeah, so this is for the ambient light. But this is the supported syntax, so I'm not sure why I wasn't able to create that. So light, colon, type or color. So light 5 candle was what I should have had in there. Let me copy that and see if that actually fixes that problem. So I'm going to go back to the torch and go back to the effect. Just change that to whatever. Okay, there's a candle. Now I want to remove this light that she had on there, and let's throw the candle. Let's see if that actually does anything. So take the effect from here and make sure it's the acolyte's turn, which we've done. And I'm going to add the light to the character. Yeah, that worked. I think it was just because I had the wrong spacing or something in there, extra character. So that's all it was, just being stupid. So, yep, that's how you add that kind of stuff to your character. So I added a custom portrait, a custom token, and then I noticed a token changed color as well with the lighting. That's interesting. So now with the dark lighting, this token is actually oh, how weird to know that. So let me take these off. Yeah, that's strange that this is now black and white instead of color. That's cool. So Shulga, is she on here still? Yeah, so Shulga, oh, there was another one. Let's see. So we can delete that one. There we go. So yeah, Shulga's black and white, so that's why her token show. I didn't notice that till now. Interesting. Let me see what happens when I drag her portrait over. I gotta do it here too. Oops, wrong. Yep. That's weird. Okay. Anyway, so that's how that worked. So I used some tokens in the maps. I listed those in the description. So if you go back and watch this in YouTube, it's there for all the stuff that I used in the web pages. Just remember that this month is Pathfinder 2 month, so we still have quite a few events on the calendar. And coming up next month is our Founders Day weekend, which is the very last weekend of July. So it's July 30th through the 1st. And on the 20th, I'm going to be a guest on the All Things Fantasy Grounds show, where it's going to be the Don'ts and Do's show. So it's your chance to vent and put out some things that people do wrong all the time. It's kind of like a backwards way to learn. So instead of telling people what to do, you tell them what not to do. So that's basically another form of teaching, but it's also a constructive way to vent and to put out your problems that you have constantly at the table. So that's going to be the 20th, Sunday night at 6 p.m. Pacific time. And then, like I said, we have our Founders Day, and this month is Pathfinder. So we got a lot of good things lined up. So Pathfinder 2, actually, we did Starfinder last month. So they've been pretty successful. We have quite a few events. Go to our Discord, and then go to our calendar, or actually register on the website if you haven't already. Make sure you use your Discord name there if you can. And then sign up for the events. And then that'll be basically what how you do it. All the events are listed in UTC-0 format, but when you actually click on the events page, or when you actually go to book the class where you select, sign up, it'll be listed in your local time. But when you go back to my bookings and you go to look at your previous booking, it may still show in UTC, so you got to do the math still. But we're working on a solution for that. So anyways, take care. Have a good afternoon. Hopefully that helps you a little bit and gives you some new life to your actual characters and what you're doing with your campaigns. Take care. I'll call it an end of the stream. Thanks for watching. I'll see you around.